A very warm welcome. My name is Naomi Simiyu, and I'm a student in DSM, Delhi Technological University, currently pursuing my MBA in my second year. And I'm going to do a book review that is Six Sigma by Graham Knowles. The book has 21 chapters, and the book was published way back in 2011. And the book has been written by Graham Knowles. And Graham Knowles is a module tutor for MSc modules, process improvement using Six Sigma. And he's also a stream leader in international technology management of the academic quality. He has also published another book apart from this one, which is Total Quality Management. And his specializations are quality improvement and quality engineering roles. So as we continue, we'll find out how Six Sigma relates to management. Otherwise, in statistics, Sigma is a sign of a representation of variation. So let's find out how Six Sigma relates to management. So we'll ask ourselves what is Six Sigma. And you find out Six Sigma is a series of tools that are used in management in order to ensure that there's close understanding of customer needs, disciplined use of facts when it comes to production, data and statistical analysis, and diligent attention to managing, improving, and reinventing business processes. So when did Six Sigma start? So Six Sigma started by a person called Smith. He was a director in Motorola company way back in 1986, to be specific. And it was currently renowned. It became popular way in the middle of 1990s, and after being taken up by GE, that's General Electric Company, and it has evolved from being a process improvement methodology to a broader company-wide philosophy, in such a way that most companies are taking up the philosophy and they want to implement it in their own companies. So Six Sigma has three distinct elements. That's measure, target, and philosophy. So as a measure, it is a statistical definition of how far a process deviates from perfection. You know that every process has its specifications, and according to the way it's supposed to be carried out. And if a process deviates from whatever it's originally specified to be, that creates a what? A measurement of deviation. That's measure. Then when it comes to a target, Six Sigma, it talks about having 3.4 defects per million opportunities. That means that if you're going to produce million products, the only allowance for defection is only 3.4 of the total products of a million. And philosophy, that this one is a long-term business strategy focused on reduction of cost through the reduction of variability in products and processes. So why Six Sigma? Why should every company go for Six Sigma? We find out that there are several reasons as to why companies should implement Six Sigma in their operations. And number one is to improve financial performance and profitability. This one, it has been witnessed over the years as Motorola claims to have saved $414 billion and increased its sales by a factor of 5 and increased profits by 20% each year. GE also has declared for 3 years, ever since it adopted it way back in 1996 to 1998, it experienced a total savings of about $2 billion. And Honeywell, another company, is stated that its annual Six Sigma savings were around 600 to 700 million dollars. And also Dow Chemicals, this one claimed that it had financial benefits of around 2.2 billion. Then the cost of poor quality. You find out that when a manufacturer is producing, let's say, speakers, then it happens that a total of 500 out of 500, 100 head has defection. So here the cost of poor quality is that the 100 that have defection, he cannot do anything about it because and because he cannot sell them because they are of poor quality. But despite that, this manufacturer has also incurred a cost on producing such defective products. So this is the cost that comes about with the poor quality. Number two, as to why Sigma, there's a lot of waste that are currently ongoing on either operations, manufacturing sector, and the waste have been divided into seven. Number one, we have waiting. This is the cost that is associated with idle time, the value of lost production. Then you have also the cost of late delivery if overall process time is affected. Number two, we have correction. That is a type also of waste, whereby we spend a lot of time and a lot of cost bringing around inspectors and carrying out inspections. We also have disposal cost if correction is not possible. Then they also have paperwork system. So the disposal costs they come around when if you produce some certain products and these products cannot be corrected, it becomes a cost and therefore a waste to the manufacturer. We have overproduction, the storage cost line, handling costs and capital tied up. We also have extra material costs if excess cannot be sold. We also have deterioration when the products that you've produced deplete in value. Then we'll have processing, additional processing costs, that's direct and overhead. It's also applicable as for the case of also transportation costs. Conveyance, that is additional cost of an unnecessary conveyance system. There's the cost of late delivery. It's also included in here. We have inventory, that's the storage cost, deterioration and obsolescence. We have motion, and which is about additional labor costs, including the cost of absenteeism of workers at the place of work, which tends to actually cost the company a lot because the products that this particular worker was supposed to produce in a certain day tend to be pushed on to a later date because that particular worker is not available. Then we have the third reason as to why Sigma, that is Sigma enables people to be responsive to and to also be focused on customers. So here it has been divided into two approaches. We have the first approach is product out versus market in. So this one is actually concerned with specifications of producing a certain product. So this one, it goes to the what's the standardized method of producing a certain product. It tries to focuses on the manual. What's the manual saying? How should we produce? How many liters of water, or maybe some certain specifications that entail in producing a certain product. Then what is the standardization? What are the procedures going to be used? Then so this one is not actually, it's actually focused on the product itself. Then the second approach is the market in approach. This one is focused on the market in that it's in its production, it wants to be more relevant to the customer needs more than to the specification of the products, such that it seeks to continuously reinvent itself in order to make sure that it satisfies the customer needs. So as you can see on the right, that these diagrams. So when you come to the second diagram, this one, it's number one, it first of all seeks the customer requirements. What does the customer want, and what will satisfy the customer needs? Then number two, it designs the product process. After finding out what the customer wants, now it goes ahead to design the process of the product on what will be able to satisfy the customer. Number three, it goes on to deliver the product. It delivers the product to the customer who needed it. Then after that, it solicits customer feedback. Then from that, it again readjusts so that to make sure that they are able to meet or to satisfy the customer needs precisely. Number four, as why Sigma, to improve product and service performance. We find out that as you can see on the right, we have two graphs. So Taguchi, loss function and customer function. This one, it seeks to be more precise on what production is likely to minimize the economic loss. Not just the loss as general, but that economic loss. And all products already meet specification. Then loss function as defined by Taguchi is basically a challenge to the traditional ideas on what constitutes acceptable quality. As you can see in the traditional one, we only have good, bad. But in when it comes to Taguchi loss function specification, this one it seeks to find out, apart from good and bad, what's that minimum economic loss production that should be done by a particular company. Number five, as to why Sigma. Six Sigma has actually contributed to organizational learning in that it follows the following process. First, you generate an idea, you integrate the idea, you interpret the idea, then you act on the idea. So it makes the organization tend to be more inclined in towards learning more than standardization, in that it's able to change with the according to the way they interpret certain processes in order to readjust itself in order to reach the Six Sigma level. That means 3.4 defections per million opportunities. So Six Sigma, the key strategic concepts. So we have, as you can see on that diagram on the left, Six Sigma is actually a process that entails DMAIC. That is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control the process. So Six Sigma is actually it's a strategic such that Six Sigma activities must be supported by processes and structures to ensure they move business projects objectives forward. So Six Sigma is also about customers. That's it goes way back to the market in concept. Remember, we've just talked about the two approaches. We had the product in, and we had the market in approaches, product out and the market in approaches. And then number three, Six Sigma is about variation. How does the process differ from the standardized process? How does it differ from the original specification, from the manual? How far does it differ? That's why you find out if a process differs from the manual, it's likely to cause variation, and the variation is likely to cause defections. And we're given an example here, variation in gearbox component. Back in 1980s, Ford had a joint venture with Mazda to produce a car called Batavia. One aspect of the collaboration was that both companies produced gearboxes. After a short time in the field, most customers preferred the Japanese gearboxes, which were reputedly sorry, smoother, quieter, and easier to use. So when Ford investigated the two products, they found that although the Ford gearbox components were all in tolerance, the Mazda components were much closer to target and exhibited much less variation. Although both gearboxes made the tolerance, customers were migrating to the better performance and delivered performance that which was delivered by the more consistent product, by a more consistent product. Uh, Number four, Six Sigma is about process and scientific investigation. Begin with a goal and a clear understanding of how well you want to achieve it. Then develop a plan to know how the goal might be achieved. The plan needs then to be enacted and the results observed. And after that, you have to analyze the results, which brings us back to the start of this cycle. After you analyze, then you realize I'm supposed to modify certain positions, I'm supposed to modify certain setups. Then you need to start again the process. Six Sigma, number five, is about people and learning, not cost. So it identifies the culture as the most important and most often forgotten component of successful Six Sigma implementation. In that, when you're going to implement Six Sigma, you're not going to just implement it on the machines alone. You have to implement Six Sigma on the entire workforce of your organization. And this one tries to bring out how important workforce is important towards the achievement of Six Sigma as a target. And as you can see in the diagram, we have you first of all need to plan. you implement, you study, then you act. So after you've planned, you implement, you study. The study part is you have to analyze it, then you act if you have to modify, or if you have to, whichever way you have to do to act on the process so that it can reach the Six Sigma target. We have vision, mission, and values. This one, they have to be enacted through an effective planning execution cycle. A plan to achieve the strategic vision must also account for both sets of activities, that is, incremental breakthrough and improvement, uh, improve current business process through use of facts and analysis to solve recurring problems. So we have a strategy management, which is divided into two. We have the Hoshin management, which is breakthrough, and we have the conventional management, which is the incremental improvement. So we have company-wide process redesigned to solve chronic problems. So this is whereby you don't just redesign a specific department that is only affected by a certain incident, but you redesign the whole company to solve that specific chronic problem. Then you also have to translate long-term vision into strategic priorities, such that you have to break down the vision. A vision goes for more than 5 years. What do we intend to achieve for more than 5 years? So you have to take the vision. If your vision is to be on every desk, on every desktop, like for example, that was the vision for Microsoft, to be on every desk of people, like on every table. They went ahead to implement it such that they had to break down their vision into strategic priorities. How are we going to achieve certain vision? How do you intend to achieve it? What are certain measures you need to take to achieve it? They also have to deploy and execute integrated annual plans. You have to track progress and also adjust accordingly as the process continues until you achieve the vision. That is the breakthrough part. We have the incremental improvement. This one involves you isolating a particular process to solve fundamental problems. Then you also just have to consider the customer needs. What are the customer needs? Map the key processes and improve. Then you also have to standardize to hold the gains. So once you realize this is what the customers need, you have to map the key processes and improve on them. If they have any kind of variation, then you standardize in order to hold the gains. We have Hoshin, as we have talked about. So Hoshin planning system, you come up with a 5-year vision. You break it into 1-year plan. That's the strategic part of it. Then you have to deploy it to departments, detailed implementation. Every month you have to carry out a monthly diagnosis where you have to recap, try to find out the progress, trying to find out where you can improve. And also you have after that we have the presidential annual diagnosis, whereby now this one has to be carried out every year. Uh-huh. So Hoshin Six Sigma taken together, it reduces the propensity to cause opportunistic application of Six Sigma projects for short-term financial gain and bend them to the strategic purpose of the organization. The transparency of the approach and the catch ball system should also have the effect of reducing resistance at both the initiative and projective level, as Six Sigma becomes a tool to help areas address their goal rather than an initiative imposed from outside. So, as managers, you need to be very keen when you're implementing your Six Sigma processes in order to not create that notion in the employees that it's just from outside and it's not to be owned. As in every case where management wants to bring out a new idea or a new ideology, there's always some form of resistance. So you have to try and in as much as possible to enable you be able to capture the initiative of the employees to be able to also be able to be partakers of the Six Sigma initiatives. And as you can see that you have to target focus alone, then process management, like as it continue, it keeps on graduating. You target the focus. After that, you look at the process management, then you diagnose, you align it to the bigger picture, that is the vision of the company, and then you achieve it as a whole. Customer satisfaction and customer value. What is value when it comes to a customer? So value when it comes to a customer is what am I expecting? So if I'm going to buy a battery, let's say for my phone, and they say that the battery is supposed to last for 12 hours, my expectation is it will last for the same 12 hours which has been specified in the manual when I'm purchasing the battery. And the results might be that the battery only lasts for 10 hours when it has charge on. So what's the value? So the value is the difference between the results and expectations of the customer. And value is a complex measure which is also shaped by a number of factors. So number one, we have the freedom from false. How is it free from faults? Is it up to the specification? Is it up to whatever is being talked about in the manual? The degree to which requirements, expectations are being met, emotional engagement with the product slash service, the quality of contact with the supplier. Then you also have the cost of the product or the service. As you can see in the graph there, we have customer satisfaction, have excitement, quality, spoken performance, achievement, and basic quality. So all of these are dimensions towards which any product has to undergo in order to reach the customer satisfaction. So variation, there are various causes for variation. So variation can occur into two dimensions. We have the special cause, which is not really predictable, like it has never happened maybe before in your company, it just happens. Maybe you've never had a fire breakout before, and it just happens that there is a fire breakout. So there's that variation from your production that will come about as a result of it, because you'll not be producing the same amount of products as you were supposed to produce before. So this one is actually very unpredictable. And we have the common cause, which one? This one is the one that you already know it's gonna happen. For example, if you always travel to work and maybe you're supposed to reach at around 9 a.m., and it so happens that you are expecting products to come, and these products, it might happen that for transportation, there are usually those common causes as to why there might be delays. And for example, there might be traffic, maybe the traffic lights having a damage or something, or maybe the driver's condition is not okay, that's why the driver could not travel and reach fast and maybe meet the target time. So these ones are actually very predictable in nature. So the difference between the two types of variation is crucially in the effect of the process. The common cause variation affects the overall spread of the process, and it will not affect predictability since it's already predictable. A process which is subject to only common cause will be predictable within limits. So we know that our journey to work might take around 20 to 30 minutes. I've given that example. And the process capability is the method by which we determine whether a process is up to the job of meeting the specifications that are set for it. So once a process is stable, it is necessary to determine whether the outcomes of the process can meet customers' expectations as described by tolerance limits in most product-oriented applications and service level agreements in service-oriented applications. Um, Key Sigma roles. We have the steering team. This one is the leading team for Six Sigma transformation by generating vision and mission. Usually, this one is part of this top management since they're involved with the coming up with the vision and the mission that are linking the program to have a visible manner to motivate and monitor the process and progress, and also have an integrated view of the projects and their links to strategic objectives. and coordinate across functional activities such as training. Then we have champion. This role is an executive, non-executive role within the project team. The champion is a senior manager and who supports the project and provides a bridge to the steering team and hence a strategic cycle. We also have the master black belts, is a role that provides subject leadership and project mentoring in black belt and green belts running projects. So we have black belt issues, which is obsession with personal attainment, and we also have concentration on improvement of certain activities, such that the rest of the organization is largely isolated. This is where you just focus on one particular unit and forget about the entire organization. People and change. Emotional aspects of change. Six Sigma requires attention to both methodology and behaviors of people at work through both emotional part of change and practical side. And as we all know that when we want to produce any product or we want to make any changes in the production in any company, there's usually some form of resistance. So at first, the resistance will be so high, then as time goes by and they tend to start seeing the performance, they start uh, exploring the process, then you find out that resistance goes low and commitment also increases as to when they get acquainted to the whole process. Have participation is also about involving a wide variety of employees in as much as of the organization strategy setting, policy making, deployment, and process improvement. And this is whereby it entails mobilization of the brain power of all individuals within the organization in order to be able to generate the best ideas. They say better decisions, better productivity, and better quality. Have empowerment. This one is a long-term goal that uh, seeks to enable principles and approaches of Six Sigma to be implemented as a second nature. In that, they tend to incorporate all the principles of Six Sigma into the entire operation of the company, such that people get used to it and it becomes like a norm. Organizational learning, we talked about it previously. So deployment model. So deployment model, as you can see it, first of all, it employs, you establish a sense of urgency in a certain production area or maybe in the whole company. You just tell them, oh, we need to achieve this, and like you create some form of urgency. Then you provide a guiding coalition. What is it that we need you to do, and be able to guide your workforce on how to go about it. Then create a vision. So when you're going to implement such and such ideas, what are we looking at, what are we going to achieve in a span of maybe, let's say, 5 years. Then you have to communicate the vision to the employees and the workforce at large, so that they are acquainted with whatever they are working towards. And you have to empower others to act on the vision. In that, how do you do that? You have to motivate the employees. You also have to incorporate bits of the vision, as we talked about it earlier on, by breaking them down into short-term strategies that can be easily achieved. And you also have to plan for short-term wins, such that maybe when you have the monthly tracking of the process and progress, and you create this short-term wins and also try to motivate the workforce, consolidate improvements, and create further change. You also have to institutionalize new approaches. System thinking, this is the art of seeing the world in a joint up way, such that you just don't see a single department as it is, but you look at it from a broader perspective, let's say as an organization. Theory of knowledge entails system thinking, variation, and psychology. Variation, it happens to all processes. There's always variance from whatever you are supposed to. So it's just that the level of variance now differs according to how much you're implementing the Six Sigma, how efficient have you included it in your operations. We have psychology, that people are very important part of the system, and other parts of the system can cause stress or lead to inappropriate behaviors. So it's very important that when you want to implement Six Sigma, you also tend to look at the emotional bit of the employees so that they can be motivated and to work towards the achievement of the company's goals. We have theory knowledge, plan they do study act. It's also known as a Deming cycle. Is the scientific method in practice. We must seek to learn from experiences, in particular considering the other three of the system of profound knowledge. That is the psychology, variation, and systems thinking. Uh, then, how is this going to be done? First, as a manager, you're going to have to talk talking the talk. That means you have to ensure that Six Sigma is on every agenda of the meetings in order to have it sink into the minds of the employees. Then number two, you have to walk the talk. That means you have to be on the front line into implementation of the Six Sigma. Number three, you have to embed it in the daily life. In GE, black belts were expected to spend only 2 to 3 years in that role full time and then rotate back into management roles in the business, so that over time more and more projects are run by qualified people within the main business structures rather than from the Six Sigma community. We have keep measuring, reviewing, and evolving. It's a continuous process. You measure, you review it, you evolve it, enable you to be able to reduce the number of defections and to also reach the required targets. Uh-huh. So this is the diagram that shows the three sigmas, both on the left and right. We have two sigmas and we have one sigma. So that's six sigma, we have four sigma, and we have two sigma. Six Sigma uses the defections per million opportunities level of a process to generate Six Sigma level for the process. The idea of a Six Sigma level is that it compares to variation in process performance to the acceptable levels set by the customer. So here, the controlling factor is the customer. So if the customer is not satisfied, you have to keep on trying harder in order to reduce the defections and to meet the customer requirements, such that you'll be able to reach the Six Sigma level, which is 3.4 defections out of a million production or opportunities. So the scientific method and the DMAIC cycle. So the DMAIC cycle, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So it has different structures. In define, we have to understand what the customer requires. In measurement, you have to establish the baseline performance, clarify the processes, characteristics, and evaluate measurement systems. Number three, analyze. You have to understand, evaluate potential causes of baseline performance. Analyze how did we perform, how did we produce, what was the quality of the product. Then also determine the key processes variables in driving performance. Number four, that is improvement. You have to fully define the test solutions, plan for sustainable implementation and of the improvements. Then number three, control. This is whereby you ensure sustainability criteria are met. That's gonna be ensured through training, proper communication, development of new procedures. Then you have to spread the learning to other appropriate areas of the organization. Make sure that everybody knows what Six Sigma is. Everybody knows what you people are trying to implement in the organization to reach the minimum defections level. And you also have to review the project of lessons and improvements. Uh-huh. All this. So we have to look at the four focuses of Six Sigma process. So it's focused on four dimensions. That's the strategic bit, customer bit, cost, and the learning focus. So strategic focus, this one it involves making a Six Sigma, implementing Six Sigma as a way of breaking it down in form of strategies that are supposed to be implemented in order to reach a certain vision that has been stipulated by the Six Sigma. So you have to be strategically positioned as an organization in order to implement Six Sigma. Then customer focus. This one is seeks to find out what the customer needs are and to also make decision on how to improve the products according to the customer needs and specifications. It also has to consider the cost focus in that every business, the main agenda of every business is to lower the cost and to increase the outputs. Then also the learning focus. This one is more oriented on the team, the workforce. Uh-huh. So improving process capabilities is essentially about reducing common cost variation, the ones that we know, leave alone the special cost. That one we don't know when it will happen. We don't know what it is. So that one it's really very hard to be able to predict when it's going to occur. You also in you have to be probably management responsible and also relating to things such as operator training, machine maintenance, and fixtures in order to reduce the number of variations. So you can see there we have the diagram, and process capability is given by tolerance band divided by the spread of the process. Design for Six Sigma. This is when designing a new product or service by giving attention of its early stage to customer satisfaction and variability. Breakthrough changes can be achieved. Remember the breakthrough changes when we were talking about considering the organization as a whole and trying to break the visions down into achievable strategies. Then, when traditional Six Sigma cannot achieve sufficient improvement due to limitations of working with an existing process, it may not be possible to reach acceptable Sigma levels. We need to apply DFSS. So the DFSS process it finds and analyzes the gaps in processes that are negatively affecting the new product performance. So after you produce the new product, you also will try to analyze and modify it again. So it finds out the negative processes that try to affect the product in a negative way in order to tackle the problems and solve it and produce another new product with the new processes and see whether it matches up to the requirement standard. The definition stage. So we talked about the DMIC. So it has the define stage, measure stage. It has the analyze stage, improve stage, and the control stage. So at the define stage, you have to have build links with the people who are going to have to live with the change early in the project. That is the team members. Agree on the timing plan, set a target, maybe by the end of the year we want to achieve this and that. Then you also have to streamline and standardize the process. Make sure that the process is precise to the instructions, and it's also standardized, and take advantage of any quick wins to ensure that obvious sources of variation and waste are removed. That means you have to be very alert as a manager. The measurement stage, this one it has it goes around four approaches, four dimensions. There's accuracy, repeatability, reproducibility, and stability. Accuracy is when there's that difference between the average measurement produced by the process and the true value of the data measured. How is it differing from the two data measurements? Then repeatability is the variation within a set of measurements taken on a single piece part. So if I take on a single piece part, how likely am I going to find a certain process in the next other different single piece of art. So you try to find out how link whichever link there is between the production of one product or good or service into another. Then producibility is the difference between the distributions for the same measurement process measuring the same item when used by different operators. Have stability, the drift of the measurement process over time. This will be assessed by measuring the part measured earlier at a later date by comparing the distributions. So stability is about time. Reproducibility is about different manufacturers. Repeatability is about different products, and accuracy is about the true value, the specification of the product from the real product that is produced. So learning and between projects, develop dialogue with the team, share the information, make sure you share the information appropriately and widely with the team, create a reflective space where they can reflect on their work, use metrics and goals formatively. Accepted as strengths of Six Sigma, we have it is strongly linked to strategy. That means it's not just out of the blues and somebody just comes out with something and tells you to make profit. No, it's strategical in nature. That means you can track the events. High levels of management focus. Key roles are allocated to create focus supported by structure and skills training. We have linking improvements in quality to business benefit. We have focus on customers. Reasons for failure and critical success factors might be the lack of commitment from top managers. So if the top management is not committed to it, that means there will not be any motivation factor among the junior management. And poor project management, if the manager is not going to be diligent enough to follow up on the process and be able to analyze the process as much as it's required, then it's likely to cause failure. Using part-time instructions, that's when you apply only the favorable instructions and leave the others, the process is really not going to be a success. Having projects tied to insignificant criteria, then setting incorrect targets, and the last one, treating Six Sigma as a quality initiative, which creates cynicism. Several problems that typically occur while performing Six Sigma. Number one, we have difficulties in identifying a leader that is more knowledgeable into Six Sigma and how it's supposed to be implemented. Then we have difficulties with developing roles and agenda for meetings, and difficulties with defining objectives and responsibilities of each member. That might also be a typical problem. The analyze stage, we have it's also divided into three: the purpose, action, and associated tools, and principal tools and equipments. So this one, you have to streamline the value. That means necessary steps to deliver value for the customer. Sources of variation in process and establish key process drivers contribute to the achievement of the critics. Then uh, action and associated tools. This one will depend upon the outcomes of the measurement phase. So it will try to create value for the customer through analyzing of sources of variation and also establishing key process drivers. Uh, Principal tools and techniques. This one it seeks out to map the tools that support the analysis of the value streams and also the basic or more rigorous analytic tools to investigate and validate key sources of variation and establish process drivers. The improvement stage, this one is whereby after you've identified the problems, now you seek out try to you seek out the specific processes and procedures that need to be mapped out and to be modified in order to reach the targeted goal. The tools that are used here are appropriate analytical techniques to test the system, and also the cost of quality analysis, hypothesis testing, among others. The control stage, this is whereby uh, it entails to test the solutions with the wider population. You clarify the new process. You set up controls. Then after that, you after action review. So after every action, you have to review it to know how much it's having variation from the whatever it's required to be. So CFS, this is it's a procedure that seeks out to mention the various responsibilities or activities that should be carried out in order to ensure Six Sigma. So number one, it talks about top level involvement and commitment. That's very key. The top level needs to be fully involved in the achievement of the Six Sigma targets. Then understand Six Sigma tools and the quality of training given to the employees. Be able to link Six Sigma projects to the company's overall strategy and the customer needs. Then selecting the BBs, that is organizational structure, and that provides communication possibilities and supports teamwork culture. Then linking Six Sigma to HR policies. We have to also have cultural issues should be addressed and lead to cultural change. Implementation should be right and gains people's commitment. Uh, project leadership and management. Then project should be focused on the essential business processes. So my conclusion is that Six Sigma, when it's used appropriately, is actually likely to achieve more success when it is incorporated with other broader principles in management, not just to be used alone because it might be having some shortcomings, or maybe it might not be implemented as perfect as it's required to. So the management is urged to use other broader principles alongside Six Sigma in order to see tremendous success and a great merit in their production and in their operations. So my final thought is by Albert Einstein. He says the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same levels of thinking we were at when we created them. That means problems keep on mutating. So the same way I solve the problem today is not the same way I'll solve the problem tomorrow. Thank you very much, and I hope you implement Six Sigmas in your operations and in your production and alongside other principles, and you will see so much of a profit. Thank you so much.